but I want to ask specifically at like what age? Because I know we talked about 18, and I know a lot of times people will say, "Well, I'm already too old for that," or "I'm too young for that," and they put maybe this age on it, or I haven't bought a house yet, so I don't need to get one,
Right.
or they put certain things in place in their own mind to say, "Well, I don't need one right now for this reason or for that reason." What would you say
Certainly.
to somebody who does that?
So I believe that um, from the day you get married, the importance of having an estate plan just gets so much higher.
Right.
I talked before about being single and having your health care advance directives and your financial power of attorney in place. Those are important. But once you bring somebody else into that mix, we have a duty to ensure that our spouse, our wife, or our husband is cared for. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you got a proper plan in place. And I have, some young couples who clients, they don't have any children, they're recently married, maybe they haven't bought a house yet. But what's imperative is that at that point, they have a plan in place to ensure that life insurance, for example, has proper beneficiaries noted, and they've got their health care directives in place and their financial powers of attorney in place, and that as spouses, they are legally through documentation allowed to make those decisions for each other that are so important. And as their financial situation changes, I say that typically what I recommend to people is once you own a home, that home, you don't want it going through probate. Uh, Once you have any other assets, life insurance, even we take life insurance, so we can pass it straight through a trust and make sure that it's distributed the way you want it distributed. IRAs and 401k plans, retirement plans, by passing them through a trust, we have greater control sometimes over how those disturbances are distributed to the spouse or to the children. So it all starts with that young family. Now, is there a magic time? As soon as possible is my motto on that, to ensure that you're taking care of your spouse. When you bring a child in, as soon as possible to make sure that you have that child is properly going to be cared for. Again, life, a lot of young families don't have a lot of assets. They're still building. But so what they'll do is that, they'll supplement with a hefty life insurance policy, which is, I highly recommend that.
Right.
But the question I pose to parents and to help them make this decision is, young parents, um, you've got a $1 million life insurance policy because you want to make sure that your spouse and child are cared for. Both parents are killed in an accident. Now you got this 4-year-old child who is going to inherit a $1 million life insurance policy. Well, they can't inherit it at 4,
Right.
but guess what? At age 18, that life insurance policy is going to be handed over to them.
Mm.
You're going to have an 18-year-old kid with $1 million.
Wow. Yeah.
Is that what you want for your kid?
Right.
You know, and I was 18. Every one of my clients has been 18. We all know what we're like at 18.
Right.
And, we don't have our frontal lobes fully developed. Our gray matter is still white, and we don't have any common sense. And, we see it all the time in Hollywood with these young stars who are multimillionaires and their lives are ruined.
Mm.
And so I talk to parents about that. If that's not what you want for your child, if you don't want your child to win the lottery at age 18,
Right.
then we put a trust in place. That trust can hold that for that child, make sure that child is properly taken care of, that their education is paid for, that they have housing and they have food and everything that they need throughout their life. But then when that child is old enough, they can get control of that life insurance money. So for me, it's never too late, and it's rarely too soon to start this process. And I do have a lot of clients come to my office like, well, we're we're in our 70s. We figure it's about time we get something in place. And I just like, well, thank God nothing happened over the past 50 years,
Right.
because, we all believe and hope and trust that we're going to have long, healthy lives. Unfortunately, the lottery sometimes, strikes, and it's just, not, not in our cards. And so we don't know. We don't know when we're going to die. We don't know what assets we're going to have when we die. We don't know what the laws are going to be. So getting it done as quickly as possible. I'll never encourage someone to do planning that is uh, too advanced for where they are. And that's a great thing about planning, is that it's a plan, and plans change. And so over the course of their life, as children come and as their financial situations change and as they get more equity in their home, they can always come back and make changes to their plan that make sure that it's always appropriate for where they are in life. I always tell people, you shouldn't go more than 3 years without revisiting your plan, because so many things can happen during that time.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome advice. I remember when you were helping us get ours established, you were talking about just something as simple as our separate bank accounts. Some people don't have separate bank accounts, but when most people, when you first get married, you start out with your bank account and her bank account, and if you
Right.
don't join them, if something should happen, can you talk about that more? Because you're the expert.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up. And it's actually, we see that as an emerging trend among young couples today, is keeping their finances actually quite separate. And, you know, I'm not going to talk about how I feel about that in particular, but from a legal standpoint, if you have your own bank account and you die and you haven't taken proper measures to ensure that your spouse has access to that account's going to go through probate, even though you have a trust. If you haven't put that account in your trust, if it's your separate, this is mine, I don't want to, the courts are going to get involved. And what will happen is the bank will freeze that account. As soon as they get word that that account holder has died, they'll freeze it. We've even seen banks freeze accounts when there are multiple signatories on the account, because they don't know, the banks don't know what legal challenges are going to come their way about those funds. And so even with a married couple, sometimes where you said, well, I'm going to add my spouse to my account, I want to make sure that he or she has access to it. Often the banks will freeze one half of that account that belong to the spouse that's died, because they don't know if there's going to be legal challenges to that. That's one of the other benefits of having a trust. When you make that account a trust account, those risks go away. And so, yeah, there's definite risk in how you decide to manage your finances as a couple. And so, that's one of the things we like to talk to people about and find out, if that's your value, that's fine. If you want to keep your finances separate, I have no opinion about that, but think about the implications that could potentially arise.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question is, does one need an attorney to establish a trust or a will? Why or why not?
Man, this question is so relevant to today, with generative AI, Chat GPT, that type of thing. So many people are getting it in their mind that I can just write in, put my prompts into Chat GPT and say, create a trust for me. This is my family. These are my children, and it's really scary. The precursor to that is all these online wills and trust services that you can go in and you can pay $195 and put your information in, and it'll spit a trust out for you. There are financial advisors out there who are promoting form trusts. We'll just get a trust to avoid probate, and they'll plug your information in. So can you make one without an attorney? Absolutely. The key here is that in order for your trust to fully serve your family and to protect your assets and to accomplish what you really want to accomplish in your family's life, you need the advice of a good legal counselor who can help you make the best decisions and who can bring up potential issues and concerns that you're not going to think about. And I would even go so far as to say that there are a lot of estate planning attorneys. If you go out and you Google estate planning attorney, you'll find hundreds of them on the internet, and they'll have very beautiful websites and very impressive. I would encourage you to not take at face value that they're going to provide you good legal counsel. I review trust for people all the time who bring them to me and say, well, I had this trust created, by this attorney up in Phoenix or Tucson or Flagstaff, and could you just take a look at it and make sure it's okay? And when I go through the review with them, often they're like, well, why didn't anyone ever tell me that? I didn't know it said that,
Right.
and so what we find, and I had this just happen just the other day. We had clients who their estate's probably worth about 12-15 million dollars, and they brought their trust in for me to review, and they were just lifting their jaws up off the floor, about what the thing said. And this is what the guy told me. He said, I sat down, I talked with the attorney, and he asked us what we wanted and what we had and about our family. And then when we went in to sign, he handed us this trust and said, okay, this is exactly what you need. And we signed it. He said he never really went through it and told us what everything meant and how it was going to impact our family.
Wow.
And so, what I would say is, find an attorney that, interview them and ask them, how do you practice? Are you going to, sit down and really work this through with us and give us counsel and advice and help us make the right decisions? Are you going to explain this plan to us when we get finished? Are you going to explain it to our family so our family understands it? And find an attorney who'll do that. Don't just find the pretty website. So, can you make one without an attorney? Yes. There's nothing preventing you from doing it. There's certain things you have to sign it. It has to be notarized, and that's fine. But will it serve you? And more likely than not, it will not serve your wishes and could actually cause more harm. The other thing that is even more important, I think sometimes, is when someone comes to me with a trust and they say, John, will you review this trust for us? The first question I ask them has nothing to do with the language in the trust. I ask them, have you retitled all of your assets into your trust?
Mm.
And because a trust is only as good as the assets that it holds.
Wow.
And so, so often I get, this kind of blank look, like, I'm not sure what you mean.
Right.
And they have had this trust for 10 or 15 years, and their home is not retitled to the trust. Their bank accounts are not in the trust. Their vehicles are not in the trust. The trust is not a beneficiary to their retirement plans. And they've had this false sense of security all this time that they have this trust and it's going to work for them, and it's absolutely not going to work for them. And their entire estate's going to go through probate, and it's not going to go to their children the way they want. So, creating a trust, there are documents. Trust documents need to be well prepared, and they need to be prepared with a lot of thought and counsel from a professional. But those are just the documents.
Right.
We have to build on those documents to really create the plan that we need and make sure we have assets transferred, and we talk to the family, we educate all the different people that are involved so that when that time comes, everyone knows exactly what's going to happen.
I remember when you were helping my family get ours set up. I was thinking that the trust was going to be something we could put in like a little folder, just kind of slide it into a filing cabinet. I bought a special safe for it. And once you did bring our trust folder, it was like 4.5, 5 inches because there was so much that I didn't even think that were going to need, that I didn't even think that was going to be in it. And as you went through it, and you and your sister started telling us the different things that we would need and why it was done this way, it was like, oh, stuff I never knew that I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. But it was
Right.
so many things that you were able to, bring to light for me and my family, that and we actually have looked on some of those, online, web things, just to
Mhm.
look up things, and it was like 4 or 5 pages for those things, whereas
Right.
what you brought me was, 4 or 5 inches, behind it, and but it was everything that we needed. So I agree that there's so many things that you helped us to understand, me and my family understand, that I would have never understood had I not spoken to you.
Right. And that brings up actually like a whole nother component of this is, um, sometimes clients look at us kind of like, why do I need 200 pages of documents? And it's like I said before, is my philosophy is that we build a safety net for your family that doesn't have holes in it, and that will serve every aspect of your family, throughout um, your life and future generations.
Right,
But so many people like yourselves who also have business interests,
right,
and that's another huge part of what we do, is make sure that those business interests, that we have succession planning in place and that they're properly established, for to maximize tax savings, and to maximize liability protection. So all of that is important also. It's all part of that whole plan. So anytime you have somebody with a business interest, that just adds a whole nother element. And we talk about, can you create your own trust? The same thing. We have people going out and creating their own LLCs, and it's easy. You can go onto the Secretary of State, Arizona Corporation Commission, and you can, for about $35, you can fill out the forms and pay your money, and you have an LLC. But all you have are documents.
mhm,
And so the same thing holds true by going to like an online document site, like or trust or will. All you have is a document, and you're basically filling in the blanks. So what we know, to compare that, for example, to an LLC or a business interest, you have to have the documents. You can't have the business without them.
right,
But creating asset protection for your personal property with that limited liability company requires work, and there are things that you have to do using those documents as a foundation to actually get that protection. So uh, that, I guess I kind of use that to kind of do a comparison of
mhm.
what happens when you do your own will or trust online, and what happens when you form your own LLC online. You have documents, but they may or may not work for you.